Hello everyone. I decided to replace the steering wheel cover. The old one had already worn through to holes, so I bought a new one, and in this video, I'll show you how to replace it yourself. We'll be removing the old one, I'll show you how to disassemble the steering wheel, and how to install the new cover. I bought a new leather cover. It's specifically designed for this model, meaning all the leather-covered areas around the spokes are pre-cut. So all we have to do is put on the new cover and stitch it around. The kit also includes thread and a needle. What do we need to do first? Since it's still cold outside and I don't want to remove the steering wheel and bring it inside, I need to warm up the car interior. Because leather, when it's cold or chilly, becomes stiffer and harder. For the steering wheel to be properly covered, I turned on the heater and warmed up the interior so everything is warm, and the leather will be soft and stretch well. And we'll also need to remove the airbag, so I'm going to disconnect the battery terminal now and show you how to disassemble all of this. First, we remove the airbag. We'll need to remove the caps from both sides. Here's the cruise control lever, and unscrew this little screw. It's a Torx screw. Take a Torx screwdriver and unscrew this screw. And on the other side, there's an identical cap, but it's a blank one. Unscrew it the same way on the other side. Now remove the airbag. We'll need to disconnect these connectors. I've already disconnected the battery, so the airbag won't deploy. These yellow retainers are removed like this. So we remove them and now pull out the terminals, one and the second. And the horn is here. Done. Next, we'll need to remove the buttons. They are attached with 2 Phillips head screws. Remove them. And the second one, disconnect the connector. Okay, we also have cruise control here. The plug is in the way, so we've disconnected it. The buttons are removed. We won't be able to completely remove this rear plastic cover because the steering wheel is bolted on, so we'll just loosen it. We'll just need to, from the back side here, then fold the leather and glue it. We'll just unscrew these 2 screws, and this plastic casing will move back a little. And here it's fastened at the bottom with 2 latches. So we bend it back. It moved back a little for us. Well, enough to allow the new leather to be tucked back. Now we cut off the old braiding. You can use a craft knife or a utility knife. We cut these threads, and then we remove it. Oh, it will come off easier now. The braiding has been removed. Now we need to remove these glue residues. We clean everything thoroughly because if any lump remains somewhere, then a bump will form under the new braiding. You'll be able to feel it. We clean everything so that no old traces remain anywhere. Now we put on the new braiding. The longest strip of leather without seams is the top. At the bottom, we have 2 seams, and they align with the slots on the steering wheel, so we won't be able to put it on any other way. It's put on like this. If the seams fit into the slots, it means our cover is installed correctly. We've put on the braiding. Here, our seams fit into these grooves on the steering wheel, everything aligned. And also, look, we have the leather should meet. This part and this one, the two pieces of leather when you're stitching. Here on the steering wheel, we have a strip. It's clearly visible here. So they should meet at this point. When you are stitching, you'll straighten it. If the leather starts to go off to one side or the other, to make sure the seam is straight, you adjust it. You can use this line as a guide. We start stitching from the bottom part. We'll need to stitch this section. We cut a thread of the required length. For the length, we measure the distance from here to here, and we take 3 times more thread than this measured distance. And we start stitching not from the very edge, but from the seam. That is, we first pull it tight here. I'll show you how now. And then we start stitching in this direction, then here, and then the remaining piece in this direction. Okay, we've taken the thread, and now we start stitching. We make sure that our 2 pieces of leather, the 2 parts, meet opposite this line, and we thread it through. We don't pierce the leather. We insert the needle between the thread and the leather. You need to make sure we don't catch the thread. Don't thread it all the way through, but just underneath. Because if you prick the thread itself, catching a few fibers in the thread, you might tear it. So thread it carefully. And on this side, do the same, but look diagonally. This loop is on this side of the seam, and on this side, we take it from here. We thread the needle and leave a piece equal to 3 lengths. We will sew it on this side later. So we left this piece so that we can finish sewing it on this side later. We'll put the thread here. Just make sure to take extra so that you can sew freely. Pull it tight, we leave this part. And now we continue. You can sew every stitch, but then the seam will be dense. You can sew every other stitch. I will sew every other because the seam will look nicer that way. Skip one loop and put it into the next one.
Можно шить каждую строчку, но тогда будет густой шов. Можно шить через строчку. Я буду шить через, потому что будет так красивее шов смотреться. Пропускаем одну петлю и в следующую одеваем.
So we finish sewing up to the spoke. First, we don't pull it tight. We leave a gap between the leather here, 3 to 5 millimeters. Once we've sewn the entire steering wheel like this, then we'll start tightening it so that the 2 pieces of leather connect like this, and there's no gap. Well, we do this at the end when we have covered the entire steering wheel all around. It's almost done, but here at the edge, I have almost no thread left. If there isn't enough thread to finish sewing, then you start pulling it tight. There's a lot of reserve thread here. So we pull it tight. I use a small hook like this. I just took some wire, bent the end, and pull it tight. You can do this with a paper clip. So you unbend a paper clip, hook it, and start pulling it tight. And we have a lot of free thread here. So we pull it to the edge, and at the same time, tighten the leather. The thread has stretched out, and it's just enough for us to finish sewing. I've completely sewn the bottom up to the end. Now we move to the top. We start again from the seam, tighten the seam, and continue sewing in this direction to the end. And on this side, don't forget to leave a piece of thread so that we can finish sewing this part later. We measure the thread length. We measure this distance from here to here and multiply the distance by 3. We take a piece of thread like this. We can take a little more with a reserve to make it easier to sew. We thread the lower loop under the seam. We leave part of the thread so that there's enough to finish sewing on this side. And on this side, we take the upper loop, which is above the seam. This one, and we sew every other one the same way. I've sewn the top.
меня прошито,
2 sections
оставить
between the
вообще
spokes are
шить
left to
целую
sew.
шить.
I
Я
took and
взяла
measured the
видео,
thread.
ну здесь
Here I
уже
took 4
4
lengths
длины,
to make it
удобно
easier to
было
sew,
шить.
and
И
we start
начинаем шить
sewing
с
from the
середины.
middle. We've already sewn the thread all the way
Прошили по
around.
кругу полностью.
Now all that's
Осталось
left
теперь
is to
ее
tighten it.
затянуть.
We just
Затягиваем
tighten it from the
просто
center,
крючочком
prying with a
привязываем
small hook
и
and pulling the
вытягиваем
thread
нитку наружу, а
outwards,
потом и по краям
and then we'll tie
завязываем
knots at
узелки.
the edges. Overall, it's all done. It took about 4 hours for the recovering. It turned out great, no worse than the factory cover. Everything is even and neat. This is how the seam looks. Everything turned out beautifully. In principle, you can confidently undertake to restitch it yourself. The only thing is, don't rush. Do everything carefully and slowly. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye everyone.